Welcome into the Hyundai Studios here on STOHD.com for STO Fantasy Playbook. I'm Will Ewick, joined alongside Ryan Kavanaugh today. Start sits, injury impact, fantasy marketplace. We begin with start sits. Ryan, one of your guys, a local guy, Cecil Shorts.
Yeah, from Collinwood and also from Mount Union, a wide receiver who has become the main option in Jacksonville with the new Blaine Gabbert, who's came out and done a nice job throwing. He's 1 week removed from 116 yards at Green Bay, but I also like that he's playing the Indianapolis Colts. Brian Hartline had over 100 yards receiving last week against the Colts, and I expect a big game out of Cecil Shorts. Tony Romo's another stardom for me, and he's kind of one of those yo-yo quarterbacks. You don't know what you're going to get. He had a good week last week, not only throwing, but the 0 interceptions is what stands out. He's playing the Philadelphia Eagles, and everybody who plays quarterback does well against the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Romo's a guy you can get a lot of value out of this week.
He's also playing the Eagles, as you said, and it's a big division matchup. Everybody steps it up for the division. Vic Ballard's a guy for me playing Thursday night against the Jacksonville Jaguars, another division game. You have Donald Brown banged up. Probably doesn't play, but even if he does, he's going to be very limited. The matchup against Jacksonville is very juicy Thursday night. Jaguars allowing 4th most fantasy points to running backs. Donald Jones, the other one. I had that trend going of those no-name receivers, plucking them and putting them in. I'm going to try to continue that with Jones. Coming off 9 targets, 6 receptions for 65 yards against Houston, which is a great defense. Now he gets the New England Patriots, a banged-up Stevie Johnson. I think you put all that together and you find maybe a score here for Jones against the New England Patriots. We move on to sits. Steven Jackson for you is a guy that we've everybody's been fluctuating with him. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I think he's on the downside of his career, and I also think Darrell Richardson's on the climb. That's the other running back who has been taking more and more of those carries. The biggest reason, they're facing the 5th best run defense against the San Francisco 49ers. They allow teams to only rush for 88 yards a game. When you factor in Richardson's effect, as well as Steven Jackson's decline, that's not a good play this week. I'd keep Steven Jackson on your bench. Joe Flacco, much like Romo, a guy who has good weeks and bad weeks. He started off hot this year, and lately he's been down. Look at those numbers, only 153 yards passing and 1 touchdown last week. He's thrown for fewer than 200 yards in 3 of his last 4 games. He gets the Raiders. Not a great team, not a terrible team against the pass, but I don't look for Joe Flacco to put up those numbers we came to expect in the first few weeks. And he's a guy, if you have a better option, to leave on your bench.
I'm going to disappoint a lot of people with my pick of Ryan Matthews, who everyone drafted and kept waiting for him to break out. And it's just not happening, Ryan. He's not a part of this offense. And we saw that last week. Even in a win against Kansas City, Matthews only got 13 carries. Tampa Bay is the matchup. They're allowing 77.2 rushing yards per game, best in the NFL. They're also allowing over 320 yards passing per game. Worse than the NFL. You throw against the Bucs. I think the Chargers continue that trend. Dennis Pitta, the next one for me, a tight end that really broke out early, had a bunch of double-digit games. Everyone jumped on that bandwagon, and he slowly declined. Dixon, according to the Baltimore Sun, the other tight end, has played 147 snaps compared to Pitta's 139 in the last 4 games. They're putting Dixon in to do some more blocking and things, and Pitta's really, his numbers are falling, and I think that continues this week, so I would put him on my bench. We move on to the injury impact. Percy Harvin, the big-time wide receiver, broke a lot of people's lineups wide open this year. Looks to be banged up. What's going on there?
Well, I don't expect Percy Harvin to play. Jerome Simpson is a guy who might benefit from Harvin being out. I'm going to tell you not to play Jerome Simpson either because, quite frankly, Christian Ponder can't complete passes to whoever's out there. On the flip side, Adrian Peterson, as he showed last week, even with a putrid and anemic passing attack from Minnesota, Adrian Peterson still gets his yardage. Leave him in your lineup. Everybody else, keep him on the bench.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing going on in Minnesota. You'd love to bet high on Kyle Rudolph and Jerome Simpson, knowing that they're going to get some targets, but really with Ponder's play, you really can't do that right now. We move on to our fantasy marketplace. Guys, you can buy low, sell high, upward trending, downward trending. Ryan, who's in your stock market this week?
Well, the first is Andrew Luck, and he's a guy who probably was drafted as a backup. Teams who own him may have better options. As the #1 draft pick, people expected him to get it pretty early. Based on last week's record-setting yardage over 400 for a rookie, Andrew Luck's got it. If you have a chance to take him off somebody else's bench, go do that. He's going to keep putting up those numbers. And Ahmad Bradshaw, he's a guy who people expect to be in their starting lineup in fantasy. I think he's a guy you can move. Certainly, there's better options out there. Only averaging 3.4 yards a carry, 56 rushing yards a game. And with Andre Brown, the emergence of him vulturing those goal line carries, you cannot count on Ahmed Bradshaw to score touchdowns from all over the field anymore.
I'm going to find one of them vultures on the other side, and it's Daniel Thomas for the Miami Dolphins. This is a guy that is kind of playing that Andre Brown role, but with a little more significance there in Miami. He continues to get more and more touches. Actually had more touches than Bush a couple weeks ago. 3 touchdowns in the last 5 games, more carries every week. Miami says they want to run the ball more. That's going to be more Daniel Thomas. Okay, I'm going to break this trend of people trending downwards because it's not Doug Martin trending down, but I'm going to go with sell high. Doug Martin, you're never going to find a better time to sell on Doug Martin right now. He just put up 2 of the best games in fantasy that you'll see all year from a running back. The schedule going forward for the Bucs isn't brutal, but it's not exactly easy. You have the Falcons a couple of times. You're going to have to play catch up. And you look back at the beginning of this Tampa Bay team in the very beginning, they weren't putting up this kind of numbers. I'm not a believer in the Tampa Bay offense. I think they're going to come back down to earth. With it, Doug Martin, you sell high right now.
Well, if anybody in my league has Doug Martin, you want to get rid of him, you've got a buyer right here.
Okay, well, there you go. You could sell to Ryan Cavan. That's all the time we have for STO Fantasy Playbook. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you check back each week and check out our columns online, S2HD.com. Click the Fantasy tab at the top of the page. For Ryan Cavan, I'm Will Ewick reminding you it's your fantasy. We just happen to be in it.